Good morning, folks. And I appreciate always the time to come here in the embrace of the McBride Room in these incredible oaks. It's hard not to feel comforted and warm in this space, given the view that we have, and in my case, given the memory of my friendship with Richard. He performed my wife's and my wedding. Richard and I go way back, and it's always wonderful to inhabit this space with him just kind of there looking at me. So I came by invitation to talk about unbelief. And I think in the program it says that the question is, what risks do you take when disclosing unbelief? And I think we could equally, and as with the same intensity, ask the question, what risks do you take when disclosing belief? And so, I want to kind of expand on that a tiny bit. As Elena introduced me, I am a sociology professor, so I'll couch things kind of in that framework a tiny bit. When we talk about social behavior, and especially deviance, broadly written deviance. Deviance is something that you have to consider the 3 A's: the audience, the actor, and the action, right? And so it depends upon who is voicing their unbelief or belief, and in what context to what audience. Right? And so if the Pope came in to a stadium and said his unbelief, that would be quite different than maybe me coming into a setting and saying my unbelief. So the general statement, what risk do you take when disclosing your unbelief, it depends upon who is disclosing that, in what context, and what the audience is and what the reception is. And so, based on my research, I know that if, for example, you're in a pub in London and you disclose your unbelief, it would be not stigmatizing at all, just the opposite. If you presented yourself as a very devout person, in many cases, it would be something looked askance. Quite the opposite here, traditionally in the Bible Belt, where one's unbelief is just almost the opposite. In the research that I did, you notice on the program, I did 2 very big surveys and got just more data that I can handle. And it was generally pretty obvious in retrospect what I got in terms of looking at the stigmatization of atheism, or the stigmatization of unbelief, and how it was geographically distributed. And it was just so predictable. I broke it down by region, and the most dramatic area where it was difficult to come out was in the Bible Belt, in where we are right now. The second most, and you can predict this, the second most difficult area would be in the Midwest, the Ohios and the Wisconsins and so on. And then the third most was in the Pacific Northwest, and then the most liberal, if you will, in that sense, was in the Northeast. And so very, very predictable. So it depends on where you are and who you are and to whom you are coming out. In certain cases, there's no stigma whatsoever. In some cases, there is. And in fact, the data that I got, the people that took the time to write in their stories, have many open-ended questions. And one of the questions was, can you describe a time when you felt stigmatized, when you came out as a non-believer? And there were many, many stories. Some of the stories that were the most dramatic and I guess poignant to me were the ones where parents would come out, and there would be reactions against their children, in small communities, particularly in small communities. And so those were the stories that were very dramatic, at least to me, hearing especially mothers talk about how painful it was for them to deal with their children's questions and to deal with the stigma that was associated with their unbelief in the small communities. And so if you live in certain areas, it's very difficult to come out. Just the opposite, again, to go back to that theme, disclosing your belief in certain contexts is very difficult. I think Elon's campus, some would say, there are times where people feel uncomfortable expressing very obviously and enthusiastically their belief. I think there's some stigmatization or sense of out-of-placeness that happens in those circumstances. And so I think the broader question for all of us is that how do we more mindfully take into consideration the context of acceptance, the context of how people are seen, and maybe move toward maximizing the comfort we all feel in talking about what is ultimately one of the most personal parts of our being, our basic assumptions about our place in the world and the meaning of our place in the world. And certainly nothing could be more important, nothing could be more existentially critical than that. And so I think we all need to, and that's the function of the Truth Center, and I think it does that wonderfully. It provides an ongoing conversation about and an affirmation of acceptance of different ranges of belief or non-belief. And that's something that I don't think we can ever put too little effort into. I think we can always do more on this campus and more broadly. I'm very aware that the question, as it's phrased on this, what risks do you take when disclosing unbelief, it's an interesting question, but it is in the context of a much broader question. What are the risks of talking about our deepest the deepest parts of our being in any context, and how can we, in an educational institution like this, how can we maximize those opportunities and those pathways for people to be more open and more honest with themselves. What I do know is that, that it's a generational thing to some extent. Just yesterday, where's Elena? Just yesterday in class, one of the students came out as being an atheist. It was off the cuff. It was in context to what we were talking about, but we were talking about the different agents of socialization, and he said, well, religion was down on his list. Why? Well, because he just didn't see himself as religious at all, and I thought that was wonderful that he felt comfortable doing that. I felt good as a professor, having created a classroom atmosphere where he felt comfortable to disclose. Parenthetically, not 20 minutes later, one of the students came out as saying, of course, it was difficult for me before, but now I can talk about being gay, and I've told my parents, and it's no big deal now. And so that's the kind of acceptance that I thought was wonderful. But when we talk about the stigma, the difficulty in coming out, it's something that, like I said, we need to support efforts like this to continue the conversation and deepen the conversation about what it means. I want to just end there saying I think it's a very good question to ask. What are the dangers of disclosing belief or unbelief in the contexts and where that happens and how people accept each other? But again, my take-home point is that there's this broader question about how can we as humans, one-to-one, be more honest with ourselves about what is in our hearts, what is in our belief, and accepting that. I think if we talk about multiculturalism, certainly we can talk about different, and that's what the Truett Center does, the different array of beliefs and non-beliefs, and making a space, this space, and other spaces around campus and around the world where we can be more open about that. Just one last quick comment to be perfectly clear. Unbelief is something that you can get killed for, arrested for in various parts of the world. You know that. There are places where if you come out publicly, and this is the same thing with being gay, if you come out publicly, there are laws against that. We have people all over the world that are in danger that are like me, are unbelievers, but can't come out as unbelievers. They can't be honest with their community or themselves because it's a danger. Certainly that's not the case in the United States, but in certain contexts, there is some risk of coming out as an unbeliever. And one of the things I think Elon does fantastically is provide moments like this and provide spaces like this where we can be a positive agent for change, both within our local community and hopefully what we do here can reverberate around the world and respectfully ask for more tolerance of people all over the world of various kinds of beliefs or unbeliefs. So thank you for your moment of opening your ears to what I had to say. Thanks.